today's webinar so that we can post it onto the Academy website so that folks can reference it in the future. And please feel free to share it with any of your colleagues who you know were not able to join us today. So as far as our agenda goes, we've got a lot on the docket, a lot of exciting things to share, but most excitingly, we are welcoming a number of fantastic education partners, some of whom have gone through the TPM Academy themselves, others who are selected preferred providers by their employer collaborative partners. So we thought that it would be helpful, and we consistently hear that it would be helpful to think about TPM from various perspectives. So we're really excited that we'll have an opportunity to hear from 3 of those education partners. And then we'll do a sort of panel. This is something a little bit new, so hopefully everyone will have patience with how this goes to ensure that everyone is able to participate. We are going to be taking the majority of our questions from the Zoom chat feature, and if this doesn't work well, then we might test out something else in the future because we have muted everybody. So just a little housekeeping note that if you do need to step away from the call, we suggest simply putting your phone down on your desk or hanging up and calling back in. We request that you do not put us on hold because that tends to lead to everybody hearing your lovely elevator music, which we would prefer not to. So we will, after hearing individual perspectives from our 3 education partners, we'll then host that panel, and then we will conclude today's call with an update from Olivia Miller at the Southern Illinois University team on our TPM Web Tool updates, of which there have been quite a few and many, many more to come. So just continual encouragement to make use of the web tool and SIU's expertise and availability. They're always very good about consistently offering their technical assistance and support, and the web tool is in my opinion, still underutilized resource for the TPM process and making it easier on yourselves as well as your employer partners. So the hope is that some of these updates will continue to serve in the capacity of making your lives easier. From a foundation perspective, just a couple of things that I want to go over with you all, including what's to come for 2020. We sent out a save the date at the end of 2019 to make sure that you had some important dates on your calendar. So we'll also review the webinars that we have on deck. We will also talk about a new TPM resource that will soon to come out, as well as a TPM survey. And then I just wanted to give you all an update on where we stand with TPM Next, which is the concept of taking the TPM training to an online model and hopefully in the future offering some type of credential to validate learning from an academy experience. So first up, in terms of a timeline, we will be headed to North Carolina, Nikki probably today, and myself very, very early tomorrow morning to finish up in their 3rd training. So I know we have a couple of North Carolina partners on today's call, so a huge congratulations to you guys in advance of finishing up your training this week, and welcome to being completers of the TPM Academy. We will also launch a new cohort at the end of February, so we had a great number of applications from all across the country come in to participate in our DC-based cohort. So we'll have close to 30 participants participating on this front end of the national cohort, and are really excited about that. We had also announced that our next academy after the national cohort launches will be in Texas. So for anybody on the phone from the state of Texas, you're soon going to be joined by close to 30 new colleagues who will be learning the TPM methodology. So very excited to get that work kicked off soon. By the end of April, we will also have an opportunity to release our CTE supplementary resources. This has been in partnership with the national organization Advance CTE and a number of TPM National Learning Network practitioners, as well as state CTE directors, in which for those who are thinking about how to leverage TPM for CTE programs of study and partnerships between secondary, post-secondary partners and employers, we hope that this resource will be really helpful to figure out how to do that most effectively. In May, we'll have an opportunity to kick off our Idaho Academy, and then we will also conclude the California Academy. May 20th is a big date. We want to make sure that you guys have it on your calendars for the Spring Summit. So for those of you who have never attended a summit before, it is a one-day convening commonly from around 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. to allow those on the East Coast for same-day travel. but it is completely dedicated to the Talent Pipeline Management National Learning Network. So if you're going to attend any of our events over the course of a year, the 2 summits that we host are the ones that we highly encourage. We traditionally have gotten between 60 to 80 practitioners attend these events, so it's a really fantastic networking opportunity, and we commonly have most of the agenda include participation and feedback from the network and from leaders who have been implementing TPM for a while. They've experienced the tough challenges, they've overcome them, and they're also looking for new ideas and ways that they can bring their TPM work to the next level. So it's a really fantastic opportunity to network with your TPM practitioners, again, from all across the country. With this new cohort, we're going to be up to 33 states in Canada, which is pretty amazing, and we're really excited for the programming to come in May. So definitely please put that on your calendar. We hope you'll join us here in DC, and it is no cost to attend. Our hope is always that we can provide some type of travel stipend. I'm not sure if I'm able to do that as of yet, but we'll try to find out that information for you guys soon. If I am able to, it will probably be around $200 to $250 per person. In August, we will have an opportunity to release the Opportunity Population Supplementary Resources, similar to the process we're going through with CTE programs of study, and recognizing so many employers focus on increasing diversity and inclusion practices within their organizations. How can we ensure that the TPM methodology really is leveraged in a way that can assist with those efforts? So those resources will be released in August. And then we have announced that Talent Forward is officially transitioning to a 2-day event, which will cover the Center for Education and Workforce entire portfolio. So it will include early child care education, K-12 education, career pathways, the transition from secondary to post-secondary, and workforce development. So in terms of an agenda, it's still a little ways away from releasing anything official, but put it on your calendars that October 27th will be a full day, and October 28th will be a half day. So we certainly hope that that will still be a great event for our TPM National Learning Network. The TPM Fall Summit will either take place the day before the October 27th on October 26th, or it will take up the second half of the day on October 28th. So we're interested in getting feedback from our practitioners to hear from you all. What makes the most sense? What would you be most likely to attend? Would you be able to come in the day before so that we can host a reception just for the National Learning Network again? Or would it make more sense for you if we did it on the 28th? So if you have any feedback about that, please let us know. We'll be talking to the TPM fellows to get their opinions next week, but I certainly welcome opinions from the entire network. In terms of webinar dates, you all should have received your calendar holds for the remainder of the year, April 15th, July 15th, and October 14th, each at noon Eastern, and they take up an hour. We had also agreed at the last Spring Summit that we would host industry-specific webinars in 2020, so our first one will be with 3 of our TPM practitioners who have been overseeing construction collaboratives on February 11th at 12 p.m. Eastern. So we hope that you guys will join that. We have yet to figure out whether we're going to have you opt into that or just send a calendar appointment and see who wants to join, but again, that will be recorded. In terms of new resources, just very briefly, we're going to release a new report next week, actually, about how TPM can be leveraged for upskilling practices. So as you all know, in 2019, we spent a lot of time revising the curriculum. I don't necessarily think that all of you who have previously gone through the training are going to go back really deeply into the curriculum, but in the case that you would like to, it's always available to you online at tpmacademy.org. Or if you would like a physical copy, just know that we're always more than happy to mail those out. Just shoot Nikki or myself an email, which will be available at the end of the PowerPoint presentation. But I hope that this report, which will include submissions from several of your colleagues who are TPM practitioners and have utilized Upskill, as well as some case studies about TPM practitioners who have used Upskill, will include resources of how to maximize Upskill practices and choosing the best Upskill strategy for you. So those contributions were very, very helpful. So big thanks to to those of you who contributed, and we'll be really excited to get that out to you guys. We'll probably send a special newsletter with that resource. If you do have any suggestions for new resources, we ask that you let us know. You can always give us a call or shoot us an email. We're very interested to know what would be most helpful to you all. I've heard from a couple of folks a one-pager directly targeting education providers or a workforce agency. That type of information is really helpful so that we know what we should prioritize, and those are some of the things on our list for this year. We also wanted to give you guys an update as to where we stand on surveys. I know that you guys are very familiar with surveys in the TPM process, but we also have found it really important for us to provide surveys of our own to figure out where you all are in terms of your TPM implementation. So it's not a way to slap wrists for folks who haven't gotten as far as they'd like. It's really a good opportunity for us to have an understanding of how folks are using their TPM Academy training. So we'll be asking 4 very basic questions on a biannual basis that are before you, so I won't read all of them off, but very, very basic high-level questions, and you guys know how relentless I am, so we will continue to knock down your doors until you answer these questions. But just know that they will come in May and October. We'll likely have an in-person option for those who attend the spring and fall summits, but there will also be phone calls made, sent electronically, so we'll try to hit every avenue that we possibly can. So now I'm really excited to get to transition to the education presentation portion. And first up, we have Christy Godman, who is with Gateway Community and Technical College in Kentucky. Christy has been a long-standing partner of the TPM process and was actually involved in the very first pilot of talent pipeline management, in which Gateway worked with an organization called Partnership for a Competitive Workforce, which covers Ohio, Kentucky, and the state of Indiana. So we're very pleased and grateful for Christy to join us. She's at a conference right now, so she is calling in during her lunch break, so even more grateful that she's taking that time. So Christy, I will go ahead and transition to your first slide with the example of the Enhanced Operator Program and send it over to you.
So, fantastic. So we began with a program called Enhanced Operator. So I work within a division of our college, which is included at all of our 16 colleges in our system in Kentucky, and it's Workforce Solutions. So essentially, TPM fit really well into our methodology of operation, which is to work with employers to identify needs and then design custom programs to meet those needs. So with the TPM pilot, we were really taking our normal mode of operation and workforce and applying it to an academic program. So we could build a program based on industry feedback, test it, and once we had the proof of concept, transition that over to a freestanding academic program that could be used by our community and also eligible for financial aid. So the first step in this, as with any program following this kind of methodology, was to pull together some employers. So we had a group of 7 employers who came to the table to focus on a position that had already been identified by our local industrial park as high need. So within this process, we started talking through what their demand numbers were and how that aligned with existing college content. With existing college content, with the traditional delivery method, it would take about 1 year and 24 credits. So that's essentially 6 to 8 classes, depending on how many credit hours per course. It would cost about $5,000 plus all those additional fees and textbooks, as well as going through the regimented, already scheduled on campus, you sign up for these classes. So what we really did from there was we looked at the content in each course, and we worked with the employers and said, tell us what's important and what's not so important. What can we pull out of this program so we can really focus the content to just what you need. So through that process, we were able to whittle it down to a 12-week program for a total of 14 credit hours that they can achieve in under one semester, and we lowered that cost to $2,300. Now, fast forward 2 more years, and we modified even more through lessons learned and made it a 14-week program, same amount of credit hours. The cost went up a little bit just because of tuition dollars, plus we incorporated some course materials within there. So essentially what we've learned in these years that we've been implementing is we have to continually go back and improve this program. It's different. It's a different model. We focus on competency versus seat time, which is different for educators. And we also know that business needs don't stay stagnant for 5 years. So what they needed from us 5 years ago is not the same as what they need from us now. So the industry input has been absolutely critical in keeping this program relevant and being able to continuously produce those workers that they need. So we have one employer partner who has been absolutely phenomenal in not only providing the feedback, but also putting their own employees through the program year after year. So they really dive deep into what we're teaching, what that produces for them in the workplace, what kind of differences they can see on the floor, and how we can continue to increase that effectiveness for them. So continuous improvement and feedback are critical, absolutely critical, not only from the employer, also from the students. So we definitely want to make sure that the employers are getting what they need, but on the student side, we've learned it's different with different populations. So we can expedite delivery if we're working with folks who are already in the field and have some kind of foundational knowledge. But what we've learned actually, and Jamie, I haven't even had the chance to share this with you yet, we started delivering this to high school students. Totally different ballgame. So they need more face-to-face time, they need less online delivery, and they need more visualization of practical application. So we're continuing to modify the delivery based on the specific situation. And so overall, it's not a one-size-fits-all. One other big lesson we learned was to make sure somebody owned it. So when this program was being developed, the 3 individuals who were primarily responsible for the development and implementation were gone within 2 years. So we had a lot of transitions we had to kind of fumble through to make sure that nothing dropped with the program, and also to make sure that we were able to continuously serve our employers and our students in an efficient way. So now we have an internal process to make sure that different pieces are owned in different places and everything is institutionalized. So if someone should leave, we have an easy way to move forward and there's no hiccups. As I said, it's a different kind of program. So we did experience many challenges, and I expect that we will continue to find opportunities for solutions. So just going into it with the mindset of this isn't a one and done. You're not going to be able to put a program together, put it out there, and then it runs beautifully and the problem is solved. It's going to have to be a continued solution-oriented approach. And making sure you're clear with employers up front about that. They need to know that this is something new, this is something that's going to evolve, this is something that we will continually improve, and the need may change and it may go away. And we need their help in continuing to identify those different pieces of the puzzle as well. So through our approximate 4 years of delivery, we've seen nearly 150 certificates earned. Part of that solution was splitting the certificate into 2 parts. So what we found with our initial solution was it was very difficult for people who weren't in the field to complete all of the coursework. Looking at what the employers were asking for, we were able to break that down into 2 levels validated by their feedback, saying really we can break this into a level 1 and a level 2. And the level 1 is really for entry level. The level 2 is someone who's going into a supervisory role. So that's worked out very well where it's not an all or nothing program for individuals. It still fills their pipeline, and now we're actually able to fill their pipeline in 2 ways instead of just at that top tier level. So I do have a little more to share, but I think I might save that for the Q&A, Jamie.
That is totally fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy. So folks, don't worry, Christy is going to hang around for the Q&A. So if you have specific questions about their work and partnerships from Gateway, you will have an opportunity to ask. So we'll now transition to our second colleague to present, Katie Meehan, who's with the Western Maricopa Education Center in Arizona. Katie recently completed the TPM Academy training that we hosted in Arizona, which finished up just this past October. So brings in a really great perspective, having gone through the same type of training as you all. So I'll hand it over to Katie.
Thanks, Jamie. So I'm excited to share from my side how TPM has changed from what we used to do and how we're looking at things now. So having gone through the TPM Academy, it really helped me to see things in a different light. So before TPM, we had a lot of individual employers that would reach out to our career services team that had hard to fill positions. And a lot of times we saw a common hiring need between different employers. And we also found that their job descriptions often overstated their mandatory qualifications. So we would speak to the employers and say, well, it says here you need a 2-year associate's degree, but you know that we don't offer associate's degrees. Are you willing to work with us? And it was a matter of, no, they just needed the skill competencies. And then we also had employers that would come to us and they'd ask about upskilling their current employees and creating cohorts just for that, or employers that were interested in developing new programs that would be specific just to their hiring needs. So like a water treatment operator would be a good example. So if you go to the next slide. So once we were in TPM, the real aha moment for me to start it off was just the importance of having employers drive the process and having an impartial host. In the past, we had always been convening these employers together through program advisories, even as we were exploring, like, should we create a program for this? But then it was education driving that conversation. So we would always approach it from, well, we can do this for you, not exactly what do you need from us as the starting point. And so once I got it into my head that having the employer driven and an impartial host was a good way to go, it really led me to think about creating transparency in the process. So making sure that all the different people who are involved know when they're in the process, what their roles are, and who's going to be at the table. So for our advisory groups, we often would let equipment suppliers be a part of the advisories, but then they were providing their views before employers even got to speak. So having TPM really helped us create this guideline of, no, we really need employers to know what their needs are specifically before they come to the training providers and let us know what they're looking for, and we can let them know what we have available to use, and then our equipment suppliers can come in on the back end as we're building things out and we've agreed that we can meet their needs. In regards to time and effort, I think it's really important that we learned that having a host that can speak to all sets of stakeholders was really valuable. So when the host is impartial and knows how to communicate with education partners just as well as they know how to speak with employers, that was really helpful. When there's an employer champion that can help motivate the different employer partners that they're working with. We've had some situations where we've done program advisory and you get 1 or 2 employers who are really excited, but the rest of the employers aren't giving you the same data. It might not have the same buy-in. And so having those employer champions can really be helpful with that. And then, so now that TPM, I've completed the academy, the different ways that we're really engaging in TPM is encouraging participation. So as we meet employers who are looking to create or upskill for different positions, we're encouraging them to join existing collaboratives or work with other employers to create new collaboratives, which that a lot of times means we might be helping them find that impartial host that can run those. And then also working with other talent providers. We partner strongly with the different college systems within our area. So just talking to other talent providers about why TPM is beneficial and where our role fits within TPM and why that's okay has really helped us in bridging those gaps and making sure that when we get pulled into a collaborative, everybody knows what's going on and how we can all best serve each other. And then finally, just some helpful hints that I think from the training provider side would be helpful for employers or host organizations. Within education, we have a lot of different parameters we're working within for accreditation and government agencies. So if you can ask those questions of your training providers, it might help shed light to why they can or cannot do something. And then having a shared language is just helpful. So like I said, with the impartial host, having a host organization that can liaison between education speak and employer speak is good. But if everybody in the room knows what we're all talking about, that's even better. So if you can get your group to create a glossary of terms, that can be really helpful. So for like us, some of our programs are clock hour, and if someone says credit hour, we might say, oh, well, we can't do that. But they might just mean the same thing. They don't know that there's a big difference to us. So if you can create a shared language, that's very helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And as far as I know, Katie is also sticking around for question and answers from the group. And just one comment about the need for the shared language and translation of language. Katie is serving on our CTE review committee, and that's one resource that we're hoping to include in the supplementary resource, as well as if you're an educator preparing for a meeting with an employer, here are things that you should come to the table with or questions to ask, and similarly with the vice versa of an employer going to meet with an educator. So we're really excited to get her feedback on those resources and to share them broadly with you all. So next, we're going to transition to our third and final education partner who's participating in today's conversation, and to kind of set the table for Darren Morris, who's the principal of Southside Technical Center in Lexington, Kentucky, is our colleague Sarah Tracy, who is a TPM project manager with the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce Workforce Center. As many of you know, Kentucky is implementing TPM in the statewide model and have assigned regional project managers to 4 regions across the state, as well as a focus on equine as an industry. So they've got a great number of folks focusing on TPM efforts across the state, and we are very grateful to Sarah for connecting us to Darren. And feel free to let me know when you all want me to transition to the slides. But Sarah, if you want to start us off. And if you're not unmuted yet, we will figure out where you are. You shouldn't be muted. And Sarah, if you want to put in the chat what number you're calling from, maybe I can find you that way. Under Darren's name. Okay. You should not be muted, Darren. Nikki, I'm just going to unmute everybody so that we can make sure we get them. Go ahead and try to talk now, Sarah.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Jamie, like I said, I'll run through these first couple slides really quickly because obviously we want to hear more from Darren than from me. But I wanted to kind of give you guys the background on exactly how we used the TPM steps and got to this particular preferred provider. So the Bluegrass Region Construction Collaborative, focused in Central Kentucky, is comprised of about 7 different employers. At the time that we were collecting data, I think it was only about 4 of them that were submitting data. But you can go ahead and head to that next slide. As we looked at the demand projections, this is what those 4 employers at the time came up with. For the next 2 years, they were going to need 273 commercial electricians total, and those were divided up between helpers, apprentices, and journeymen. Go ahead to the next one. One of the really interesting things that we found, which wasn't necessarily like shocking, but it was kind of a confirmation of what the employers thought, is that they were traditionally getting almost half of their talent directly out of high school programs. Go on to the next one. When we drilled down a little further in their talent flow after those demand projections to look at exactly where that talent was coming from historically, they found that nearly 50% of those candidates that they were taking in were coming from 5 particular counties throughout Kentucky. And when we kind of had this conversation related to this graphic in particular, the employers were easily able to say, oh, it's in that county, well, it's that school, it's that program. They really know their industry well. They know the schools that are providing that good talent for them. But what they chose to do, rather than partnering with multiple entities at once, since this is their first year of really partnering with an educational partner, is they said, you know what, let's drill down, let's work with one particular school, one particular program that we know oftentimes gives us quality candidates, and let's build a pipeline there that we can then replicate in other counties with other programs. Go ahead to the next one. So through their work, they found a couple of different breakdowns in the pipeline. One is that, early childhood, middle school, elementary, middle school, there's a lack of industry awareness and oftentimes a lack of really students being able to identify if they have that interest or aptitude. Also, with Southside is a half-day program for high school students in Fayette County. So they spend half their day at a regular high school and half their day here, if they choose to. They don't enroll as freshmen, though. So even if you're targeting those middle school students, you may need to see them again that freshman year. So what we recognized as well is that there's a bottleneck in that freshman year in interaction. So there needs to be that middle school education and industry awareness, but it almost needs to be reiterated again, be that freshman or sophomore year, so that students can really understand this is available for you. This is an industry career path that you can focus on. Let's see what that looks like. Go ahead to the next one. And I'm going to let Darren take it from here and tell you some of the outcomes that have come from their work in partnership with this collaborative.
Good afternoon. I'm Darren Morris, Southside Tech Center Principal, and I'm honored to be here today to speak with you guys. Thank you for having me. We've had some programs in place through the years to go along with all of our school-wide initiatives. We have 7 different technical programming in our school, and each program that we run has technical advisory councils. What's been different with this is that when we do our advisory councils, they're typically pretty limited to maybe 2 or 3 industry partners. And with TPM, we've been able to expand the amount of industry partners that we have involved with our programs. And a lot of the effort and work that's coming for TPM with our electrical and electronics programs, we're able to replicate that or these initiatives into other technical programming that we have here as well. And so one of the things or outcomes that Sarah wanted me to speak about, it was the employer fair. And we held that in September, and we invited several different industries into the school, and we had 19 employers that came to set up in our hallways, and we ran every student we have in the building through the employer fair, regardless of what program they were enrolled in. And that came from speaking and discussing and listening to what our employers on the TPM meetings had said to us about being exposed to students and having the opportunity to present what they do to students. So that was very successful. We've done that in the past, and the difference now versus the way it was in the past is there's a follow-through that comes along with that, and there's kind of an expectation or additional outcome, if you will, that we want to get out of it and that the employers want to get out of it. So in that process and those discussions, it was, okay, when we have an employer fair, then what's going to come next? And the TPM determined that they wanted to have an opportunity to speak and present to our counselors and what we call CCR coaches, which is not a high school counselor, but it's a college and career coach, yeah. So I guess it was probably November that we were able to invite the counselors and career coaches to the Kentucky Chamber located in Frankfort, which is about a 20-minute drive from Lexington. And again, it gets those guys out of their buildings so that they can go and relax and actually focus on what's going on. And so they were able to host that meeting. We had 20-plus counselors in attendance. And then along concurrently with that was that we were going to have an interview day. And initially we planned to do these in November after the September career fair, but that was a lofty goal, I think, in the first time through this and the first time of us really planning interview days at the school. So we wound up pushing those back, and they've actually occurred last week, and they're occurring this week, and I'll speak to both. But we had live medical interviews last week for students that have attained their certified nurse aide certificates through our pre-nursing pathway. And we had several employers that we were able to reach out to. We used Sarah and the Kentucky Chamber to help with that, so using them to help plan in this process has been wonderful. So after the last week, we learned a few lessons from that, and this week we're doing interviews for our electrical, electronics, carpentry, and welding students. We started today. We've had a full slate. We've had several companies in here. I think we have 12 represented, and we're doing them tomorrow and then Friday as well. And then the follow-up to this is going to be additional live interviews if the companies want to do that in the April-May range. And then we do a signing day here at the school, so hopefully it's kind of like the celebration of college or high school athletes when they sign on with a college, and we kind of do something of the same here at Southside for the employee part of that. But the great thing about the interview day is that, as a school, we're held to, in healthcare there's HIPAA laws, and in school there's FERPA laws. But when we schedule these interviews, the students create their resumes and cover letters, and they hand those to the students, and there's no law against that. So it's a tricky way to get them connected with the employers, so then the employers can follow back up with the students and recruit them, because I often tell them that it's very important that our students experience the recruitment process as a college basketball, football, you name the sport program recruits their athletes. And when the students start feeling special about that, then we can start filling some of these voids that we have in the industry, so to speak. Some issues that kind of come from the misunderstandings, I guess you would say, that the main one is that I've kind of caught on to while participating in TPM is the expectations of employers of what schools should be able to do and the expectation of the school of what the employers should be able to do. So having everybody in the same room to have discussions around this, we've been able to circumvent some of those finger pointing things that occur sometimes, and actually create plans, more intentional plans to meet some of these outcomes and put things in place. So I think it's been a positive experience. So that's basically all I have to offer on this at this time, and I would be happy to field questions later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah and Darren. So we'll now kind of open up the panel portion of the webinar. So if any folks want to use their chat feature, you can either send it to me privately or send it so that everybody can see it. And if you are specifying the person that you want to ask a question to, please include that in the chat. The first question that I received is directed at Christy. And the question was, can you talk a little bit more about the process for revising the curriculum, and how long did the transition take to go from a 24 credit program to the 14 credit program? And we'll just make sure that you're unmuted. Christy, if you want to try to talk. Christy, try to talk again.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now.
Yep, you should be good.
Okay, great. So on the first part, the revisions of the curriculum, when we went through the first year of implementation, we kept it in Workforce as a non-credit offering, so we could literally revise as quickly as we needed to. Obviously, when we transitioned it to the academic credit, and let me back up a little bit. So it was still 14 credit hours, but we used the approach of credit for prior learning. So once they successfully completed the program through our non-credit training, then they were able to be granted credit for prior learning for those 14 credit hours. Sure, we still had to make sure the instructors that we used and all of the content we used was in line with our accreditation body. So we took care of all of that on the front end. So after that first year of implementation, when we started to move it over to academic credit, we then had to go through what many employers probably don't realize, which is about 4 different layers of approval to get curriculum revised and approved. So that goes through a local curriculum review. In Kentucky, it also goes through our system level. So KCTCS, the Kentucky Community and Technical College System Curriculum Review Committee. Then it goes to the Council on Post-Secondary Education, and then ultimately to our regional accrediting body. So once we moved it to academics, it does take about a year to get curriculum revisions put through all of those different layers. With that said, we are able to move a little bit faster than that while we're working through the process through different pilot provisions that are put in place for us to be able to revise and deliver. Included in that is a 25% wiggle in each course. So what that means is, as long as you're maintaining 75% of each individual course built within that program, you can modify by 25% before having to actually have revised curriculum. I hope that answers the question. The transition from full workforce over to full academic program took about 2 years.
Thank you, Christy. And from what I remember, that process early on when you all were working with the employer partners, they had done an RFP process for selecting who would be kind of the most responsive to their needs, and you all were able to get into the room pretty quickly to walk through their job descriptions and what they were saying were their most highly needed competency needs, to try to figure out where those areas of replication from training within the community college system to what they were doing as part of their onboarding. Would you say that's accurate, an accurate summary as well?
Yes, absolutely. And part of that is that solution-oriented approach. So we knew it wasn't going to be easy. We knew we were going to run into barriers with credentialing and all of the academic tape, but we had to go into it knowing whenever we hit a problem, we have to be prepared to try various solutions to move around it so we can still be responsive while being compliant.
Great. Thank you, Christy. The next series of questions are for Darren before I have a question for Katie. So Darren, the very first question is just confirmation that the employer fair is at the high school level and that this is the first year of the partnership with the Employer Collaborative.
So yes, mostly high school, but we have a program we've placed in our technical center where students are sent to us, so we're not attached to a high school, but we actually have 8th grade students that come over, and so they were exposed to it as well.
Great, thank you. And this is the first year that you're working with the Employer Collaborative through TPM, is that correct?
Yes, it's the first year, and yes, the first year we've done it this way.
Great. And the next question directed again at you, Darren, is which industry partners are in the Advisory Council and what are their duties and responsibilities?
All right, so holistically, we have on our advisory council, I serve on every one of them. I have, the teacher serves on that and usually hosts a meeting or chairs the meeting. Sometimes an industry partner will. We try to get a minimum of 3 industry to participate, for instance, for electrical, Amtech here, and Aero Electric, and a local company, Walker Electric. We've had Dixon Electric. There's several different electrical companies that participate on those councils. So we try to locate the local industry partners and have those guys serve on these councils as well. And we have parents, students, and college partners that sit in on the councils as well.
Thank you. And can you just clarify, so then the construction collaborative that you have become a preferred provider for, the members of that include some of the employers that have served on your advisory council, but also expanded the number of employers that you're working directly with. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. We had some pre-existing relationships. I think that's how we were selected through the TPM process, because of the relationships that we had with those companies that were participating in this, and then it's definitely brought on an additional probably 6 to 7 electrical contractors that we didn't have previously.
That's great. Thank you. The next 2 questions that I have are directed at Katie. So Katie, Jennifer says you highlighted some of the differences with your prior approach and your new approach as a result of TPM. How was that embraced with the WestMech team, of which you are a part of, and what obstacles did you have to overcome?
That's a great question. So within our team, it was really well received once we really dug into why talent providers come in kind of after the employers have done their homework. We in the past had really been encountering where we were the ones realizing employers had shared needs and trying to help them see between each other that they had shared needs, and okay, what are those? And if we create a program for you, do you have enough need that starting a program that will produce 24 candidates every year, are we going to be able to get them jobs, things like that. So it was nice to be able to say, hey, if you work through this process, you're going to be able to bring the data that will help us know if we're the right partner for you. And if we're not the right partner for you, we're okay with that, because it's best for both of us to make sure this is mutually beneficial and that the job seekers at the end of it are getting what they need to get into the positions you're looking to hire for. Any obstacles? I think it's really just helping set that tone of why we wait until after that homework is done. And once people understand that, I think they're willing and ready to work through that process.
Thank you. And another question that came in from you through a private chat, Katie, is who has served as the host organization for collaboratives in Arizona? I'm happy to contribute to that as well.
Yeah, so the Greater Phoenix Chamber Foundation serves as a host for many of the collaboratives. And then through our TPM Academy, there have also been other groups like the Center for the Future of Arizona, the Tucson Chamber, that have stepped up with employer collaboratives as well. And so I know that the Greater Phoenix Chamber actually has a list on their website with who is serving as host organizations and what groups there are. So then there can be quarterly updates, and it's public facing. So if someone wants to join a collaborative, they know who to reach out to and what the areas of focus are.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katie. The final question that we'll ask of the panel is directed at Darren, and Barbara says, you mentioned elevating the programs like athletes. Have they participated in the National Technical Letter of Intent Signing Day in February that originated at Washburn Tech?
We have not participated in that. That's a little early for us. So we have ours in April and May. I'd love to get to that point, but we're just not there yet.
Great. That is just a couple, believe it or not, folks, mid-January. That's just a couple weeks away.
I didn't finish answering a question earlier, if I may.
Sure.
I didn't realize it until after I finished speaking. But for our advisory councils, the question was, what do they do, or what do the industry partners do in the advisory councils? So they advise on the implementation of curriculum, the safety in the program in the field, projects of student learning, advocacy for the program in school and the community, recruitment and retainment of students, work-based learning experiences in the field, job placement of students in cooperative education, and after high school employment, meaning graduation, placement, and anything else as needed or requested by the committee. So they work on all kinds of different initiatives for us.
That's very helpful. Thank you for adding that important context. Well, that is going to conclude our panel portion. If you want to, even though you're all muted, applause our panelists. A huge thank you, guys, for your perspectives and your continued contributions to your communities and improving the opportunities for your students and workers in your area. Really grateful to hear your perspective. And I mentioned this on the chat, but for anybody who's not on the chat, if you would like to ask other questions of our panelists, I'm happy to follow up with them via email, and then we're happy to share their responses with the broader network in a follow-up email to the group. So thank you again to Katie, Christy, and Darren. Really appreciate you guys, your availability today, as well as your continued engagement in our network. Last but certainly not least, I'll throw things over to our friend Olivia Miller from the SIU team to talk about our TPM web tool updates. So Olivia, you should be unmuted.
Hey everybody, it is Olivia Miller. I'm excited to be telling you all what's going on with web tool as we're working to make updates. One of the first updates we have listed here is that we updated some of our industry recognized competency frameworks that are available within the TPM web tool to use as you're building out your business function. So we have on this page just a listing of the different sectors that some of those competency frameworks fall under. So as you're setting up those business functions, any new business functions, make sure you're taking a look at those new frameworks. Next slide, please. The other update we made was in regards to the additional survey question types that you can add on to any of the TPM surveys you build. So we had made an update in the past to include some additional formats for additional questions you can include. We've just made some additional updates based on some great feedback we've got in regards to the original update. So you now have a better view after you've added the questions when you're setting up that survey. So you can easily see what different options are available and then order those questions in whichever order you would like them to be in. Next slide, thank you. And so in 2020, we are going to have a lot of huge updates coming out that are going to be really great for the web tool and hopefully help with usability and make this easy for both our host and collab admins, as well as our business admins to use. So we're planning on having this update and the other update out the end of January. This first update is going to be including demographic information as part of our talent flow analysis survey. So you can choose to include one or all of these different demographic sections. We have preset lists that are going to be established for each collaborative that you can expand upon. And as you're setting up your survey, you can choose which pieces of the demographic information you want to include to collect data on. And then we'll also be reporting out that data in various ways once the survey is completed on our survey data graphs. Next slide, please. And then we are currently also working on updating our merging talent providers feature. So right now, only 2 talent providers can be merged at a time. This update is going to move that over so that you can merge as many talent providers at a time as needed. This should help speed along that process exponentially and allow you to get that information and data cleaned up very quickly. In addition to our manual merge, we're also including a suggested merge option on there so that you can go and select a specific talent provider and click to get suggested merges on that talent provider. The system will do a check using the data that it has collected for all the talent providers and spit back whatever providers have the closest match and suggest that you make those merges. So it kind of takes a little bit of that searching and thinking out of the process to kind of help speed along that process as well. And I believe that is the last of the updates we have listed for this webinar. But like I said, we're going to have a lot of updates coming out in 2020. Every time we have any updates come out, we do post them on the forum. So always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And then if you have any questions now, we do have a few minutes.
So please feel free to use your chat feature if you have any questions for Olivia or for me. Going once, going twice. All right, with that, we look forward to the next time that we have an opportunity to speak to all of you. Our next National Learning Network webinar is on April 15th. I hope you all will consider joining us on February 11th for our industry-specific construction collaborative webinar. Again, we'll figure out getting that information out to you guys very soon, but it will be at 12 noon Eastern. Our contact information is on this screen. If you have any suggestions for resources or anything related to TPM, don't hesitate to contact us. And thank you again for making your hour with us so productive and effective. A huge final thanks to Christy, Katie, and Darren for their time today. So have a great day, everybody. Bye.